Welcome to the Stewardship Action Foundation's biannual Revolutionizing Recycling webinar. I am Jordan Wells and I serve as our Director of Advocacy and Communications. But I also wanted to let those of you who didn't know that I've actually accepted a position at the California State Association of Counties. So this will be my last webinar with SAF and NSAC, with my last day being next Friday, February 28th. But I also wanted to share some exciting news that we're hiring for a deputy director, and we'll be sharing more information on what that entails and how to apply at the end of the webinar. But I cannot say enough amazing things about NSAC and SAF, our staff, our board members, and how much I will miss them all and all of my amazing colleagues in this industry. So before we get started, I just wanted to briefly go over some housekeeping items. Today's webinar will feature 4 amazing speakers, and it'll be a type of speed dating for new technologies format, with each speaker having 10 minutes to present, and then we'll have 40 minutes of Q&A available time at the end of the webinar. So if you do have any clarifying questions or wanted to put your questions into the chat as we go, Heidi Sanborn, our executive director, will be moderating that chat and can prompt our speakers if there's anything that they need to clarify before the Q&A session at the end. And then if our panelists could please go off camera when you're not presenting, that way we can have this focus be on our speaker at the moment. So to kick it off, we're going to hear from our executive director, Heidi Sanborn, who I've had the absolute honor of working for over a decade. Anyone who knows Heidi knows that she has been leading the charge in the United States for producer responsibility and pollution prevention for over 35 years. And she is my personal hero and role model. So Heidi, over to you.
Well, we can't start this by crying, Jordan. As you can imagine, for me, this is like a piece of me leaving, but at the same time, I'm so proud of Jordan and I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together. This has absolutely been a team effort. And 10 years with you was some of the best of my career. So thank you so much.
Welcome everyone today. And it sounds like Heidi might have had some power and computer issues. So we're just gonna roll with it. Okay, so next slide, please, Victoria. So for those who don't know who the Stewardship Action Foundation is, or the National Stewardship Action Council, the National Stewardship Action Council was first formed in 2015. It's a 501c4 nonprofit that advocates for a now responsible circular economy, and it can lobby unlimitedly at any level of government across the United States. And then we also have the Stewardship Action Foundation as our affiliate 501c3 nonprofit organization that primarily does education and outreach to support NSAC's advocacy work. But both organizations share a vision that the United States attains a responsible circular economy. Next slide, please. So this is our outstanding board of directors. We have folks from all over the country in different sectors. We have Ted Horton from Austin, Texas. We have Shirlene Sitton in New Mexico, Amanda Cotton in Minnesota, Courtney Scott here in California, Maya Kaisers in Washington, and so forth. So we're just so grateful for our board of directors and the time that they put in to make SAF the organization that it is. Next slide, please. We also have our NSAC board of directors here. I'm sure friendly faces, and I know I see Tim immediately on my list here, so welcome Tim, and thanks for all of our board members for being on the webinar today. Next slide, please. And we wouldn't be anywhere, we wouldn't be here today without our sponsors. We just wanted to share our utmost gratitude to those who fund our organization and the work that we do. So nature is a circular system. We have interrupted the circular economy that is nature with our take, make, waste, a linear economy. Next slide, please. But what is a circular economy? We go off the Ellen MacArthur Foundation definition, which is based on 3 principles. The first being that we need to design waste and pollution out of the system. Second, we have to keep the products and materials in use. And lastly, we have to generate those natural systems that we've done so much damage to. So a great way of looking at this is we're decoupling economic activity from the consumption of finite resources. Next slide, please. Oh. Okay, so now I thought this was going to be Ben first, but we're going to head over to Ray. Ray is the North American Sales Director and Degradation Innovation Director for Okonos. He has a degree in biology with a focus in chemistry from James Madison University, and he has worked in the field of biodegradable plastics for 16 years. So Ray, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for the invitation to join you as well. I'm also an officer at ASTM, where I hold 3 biodegradation standards to my name as well, just for a little background. Next slide, if you don't mind. We are all here today for what we already perceive as the global threat that potentially our economy is forcing on us, and this doesn't exclude plastic pollution. So I'm not going to go through each one of these, but essentially less than 10% of all plastic is actually going to ever be recycled. More plastic means more CO2, and more CO2 leads to changes in our environment like global warming, ocean acidification, changes in migration patterns for certain species of animals, and so on and so on. Next slide. We at Okeanos believe that any sustainable solution is going to have to stand on 4 pillars. We believe a solution has to be realistic, scalable, sustainable, and the biggest one of all, economical. And if you can't even stand on one of these pillars, then you're going to fall flat on a global scale. So let's look at our Okeanos technology and how it relates to these 4 pillars. Next slide, please. And we're going to start with the realistic side of things and our inspiration for our product. Next slide. The egg, sorry, that was a big pregnant pause for you. The egg is the perfect package. It is 97% calcium carbonate with a 3% protein binder, degradable, efficient, flexible, lightweight, and the perfect protective barrier for a very important package. Unfortunately, we are not Mother Nature. However, we have been able to start making our packaging with 30%, 40%, 50%, even 67% calcium carbonate. Next slide. A little bit about calcium carbonate. It is considered a renewable resource, making up over 4% of the Earth's crust. It is considered safe for animals, humans, and plants. And I would wager all of us on this call today actually ingested a little calcium carbonate when we brushed our teeth. A building block for our oceans, for mollusk, coral, and crustaceans. It's considered readily available around the world, inexpensive wherever we go. And the best part of all, it has an extremely low CO2 footprint. Next slide. What we're doing with the same thing that we've been doing with calcium carbonate since 1960, when we first figured out that we could put rocks into our plastic products. The goal of our company, though, is to be putting more stone into products that we more than we've ever done before. So our actual full drive here is to replace the majority of oil-based resins with renewable calcium carbonate. And by doing this, we cut our carbon footprint by half. Next slide. On the scalable side of things, next slide. We have only been around for about 5-6 years at this point, but we are a global company. Everywhere you see in color is somewhere where we are actually able to supply our calcium carbonate from our major partner, Omia, who has 180 locations around the world. Everywhere you see in the coral color is where we currently have production operations occurring today, and everywhere you see in the yellow or the seafoam are where we're going to be growing in the next few years. Next slide. However, by being a global company, this doesn't mean that we're taking our focus off of the local. So the idea here is that we want to harvest our stone as locally as possible. We want to process it and compound it into the to be converted into the products and packaging that we're using in the local market today. By doing this, we cut our CO2 footprint for transport associated. We're not trying to send stone from India here to the United States or Brazilian stone somewhere in Europe. The idea is to get our stone as locally as we possibly can. Next slide. Now, to be an actually sustainable technology, we have to be sustainable. So next slide. Oh, next one. There we go. So for every kilo of plastic that is produced today, 2 kilograms of CO2 are expected to be released. However, for every kilo of calcium carbonate that we use in our product, only 0.27 kilograms are actually released. This is due to the minimal water, energy, and transportation costs associated with our product. Calcium carbonate is considered a carbon sink, meaning it has 0 degradation emissions. Once that carbon is locked in that stone form, it is not coming out. Up to 65% reduction in plastic content. For the most part, the products I'm going to show you today are anywhere from 40 to 55%. And by doing this, we eliminate CO2 emissions by substituting out that much. Now, earlier I mentioned I'm an officer at ASTM. Twice a year, we get together and yell at each other about what we consider the number one way to be biodegradable in plastics is. The goal here is when you put 100 of me's in a room and say, what's the number one way you can be biodegradable with plastics? The reality is you get 100 different answers, and that's because there is no one silver bullet for all plastics. However, you put 100 of me's in a room and say, what's the number one way we can reduce any potential for microplastics to be created into the environment? And you get one answer from everyone, and it's source reduction. The whole idea of our technology and our company is we are a source reduction technology that starts sustainability at the head of the food chain instead of waiting for consumers and companies to make the right decision to recycle or compost or dispose of in a responsible manner. Instead, your package has already had sustainability introduced to it, no matter what happens. And from there, you can make more sustainable decisions down the road. And because of that, we are still recyclable both in post-consumer and post-industrial streams. Next slide. For a little bit of a brief, this is a LCA, a life cycle analysis that was done on our technology. The founder of Medulla, Neil Shackleton, who does these types of reviews of different technologies, stated when reductions exceed 20% in one category, transitioning to the considered material becomes compelling and urgent. Even using calcium carbonate at lower levels like 53% or down to 40%, we still get extreme drops in greenhouse gas emissions, non-renewable energy, freshwater consumption, and we save on land use and the impact on the ecosphere. Next slide. Beyond that, the Colombian government did a full study of our technology versus 6 other sustainable technologies on the market today. In 11 different categories, we came out as the #1 option for the Colombian market, except for the one that calculated the use of minerals and metals in the product, and that's because we are a mineral technology. So across the board, it didn't matter where we went or where we have gone, we have been shown to be the most sustainable option for packaging on the market. Next slide. If you get into the post-consumer side of things, I won't go through each one of these in too much detail, but the idea here is that by reducing the amount of plastic going into your landfill, into incineration, you reduce any CO2 that is coming from this. On top of that, recycling has always accepted calcium carbonate, so there is no changes in that. We also have density reduction technologies that we can marry to our technology to make sure that plastic floats, and we are working on a composting option, hopefully by 2026 to launch. Next slide. Finally, the biggest category of all, economics. Next slide. The good news here is that the price of our products are already rock bottom. Sorry, it's a terrible dad joke. Nobody laugh at that. I don't want to hear it. Point is, no matter where we go around the world, we are beating current resin prices on the market today. So for the first time in 16 years of doing sustainability, I can actually offer you a sustainable technology for your plastics that saves you money instead of having to cost a little bit extra. Next slide. Bonus category for you, being recognizable as sustainable. Next slide. These are products that we have on the market today, everything from beauty and healthcare bottles to squeeze bottles for lotions, flower wraps, food packaging, multi-layer barrier film packaging. Next slide. Now, on the market today, we see so many different terminology like green, sustainable, compostables, environmentally friendly, whatever it may be. They all sort of start to get washed out. One of the ways that we've gone around this is we've created this QR code. So if anybody would like to, they can scan this QR code with your camera right now and it'll pop up a web page. You do need to enable location services. Once you do, it will show you the impact of using a made from stone technology in this sandwich wrap. So when I scan it, I'm getting 59.85% reduction in CO2 footprint. Everyone else on this call from wherever we are around the world are actually going to get a different number. So the idea here is that we take, there's a little brief about why calcium carbonate is good for the environment, what is carbon footprint. And then you have our ground to grocery roadmap where it shows you where the stone was harvested in Vermont, where was it processed in Vermont, where was it sent to Cincinnati, Ohio, where it was converted into, and then Florida, where it was made into the sandwich wraps that you would get at a Starbucks. And then where are you sitting today? And all of this goes into a dynamic calculation of the CO2 footprint. So now when someone is in a store looking at their product, these products on the shelf, they scan the QR code. I can't promise you that every single time someone scans the QR code, they're going to buy your product. What I can promise you is you have an informed consumer, someone who understands the impact of choosing this product over another one on the environment by that one decision. Next slide. Finally, we are a member of the UN Global Compact. We are a member of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the Business Coalition for a Global Plastics Treaty. We are an ISO certified company. All of our products are approved for food and beverage contact, and we also follow SETIX. And our sustainable development goals are on the left. And next slide. And this is a very inspirational quote by Gandhi, which was much better from him, so I won't read this one to you, but my name is Ray Laughlin, and thank you for your time today.
Jordan, there's two questions in the chat. I think it'd be nice to answer now before we move on real quickly.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes, so that sounds great.
Oh, great. And well done, Ray. Speed dating, you're
Thank
very
you.
good at it. So,
Appreciate it. Don't tell my wife, please.
well, the first one is about how much plastic is being used and along with your product, you're definitely source reducing plastic, but how much is still left in the product? The second question to that is, how does this work with the existing recycling system?
Excellent question. So we do not view ourselves as the long-term end-all be-all solution for plastics in packaging to get rid of them or anything. We view ourselves as a short to medium-term sustainable solution that companies all over the world are looking to reduce their impact through CO2 footprint, through energy, through water, whatever it may be, in multiple categories. And we are just that iterative step to the next one that's coming one day. But because everyone's looking for one silver bullet to solve all problems around the world with packaging, we do nothing because that silver bullet just doesn't exist as of today. So our hope is to be that next step forward, and then we continue onwards. Again, it depends on your product. Films may be somewhere in the ballpark of 30 to 50% calcium carbonate. So it would still be, what was that, 70 to 50% polymer versus your food trays or meat packing trays that you would get at the grocery store where your hamburgers are on a tray. We can go all the way up to 60% calcium carbonate for something like that, eliminating over 60% of the polymer that would be used there. Recyclability is always going to be a challenge. You know, the difficulties there are in the United States today, we're looking at a 1.7% recycle rate of all plastics produced by the US. So in even 80% of that is PET. But our goal is to still be able to work with all recycling methodology today, where we're already talking with the APR about how our technology functions and works. And we have weight reduction technologies that we can marry to our materials so that we can actually reduce it and make it so that stone floating through the recycling stream and they can still recycle it.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we'll hold the rest, and other people want to know about your products and so forth. So maybe you can put that in the chat. Thanks.
Be happy to.
We'll move on to the next speaker.
Great. So next we have Benjamin Asapow, and he joined Again Technologies in 2023 to lead strategy and business development. Ben grew up in the recycling and material processing industry and recognizes the need to bring awareness to the improved technology that is driving sustainability and economic growth in plastics recycling. His experience in partnerships and business development, he has experience in those, and he started his career in corporate partnerships for multiple professional sports organizations and is a graduate of Boston College and the Carroll School of Management. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey everyone, excited to be here. Like Jordan said, my name is Ben Ospo and I'm the Director of Business Development here at Again Technologies. I'm really excited to be here and grateful for Heidi and her entire team for providing us this platform to exchange our unique and exciting technologies and initiatives that we are bringing to the world of recycling. So I'm here to share about our finished product, Again Substrate, which we're actively introducing to the traffic signage industry as a 100% recycled plastic alternative to aluminum road signs. Next slide, please. So Again Technologies was founded over 30 years ago, and we continue to be a leading resource and carbon neutral solutions provider to the mechanical and advanced recycling industries. We specialize in proprietary formulation and technologies, and we target difficult to recycle plastics that are on the left side of the cost curve, as we say, and we create macro polymers that we can supply into all corners of the recycling industry. We're taking what is considered trash or a byproduct in our industry and putting it back into application. What most feel as a complex issue, we find simple to execute and provide solutions. So let me briefly share some, hold on, keep that slide, sorry. Let me briefly share some information about our biomimicry model, which is our pilot plant, which will become operational in the next 45 days, called WireCycle, where we actually take wire and cable residual a very difficult to recycle product with over 27 different polymers commingled together. We're able to separate those polymers at a purity level high enough to go back into mechanical and advanced recycling. Once those metal folks strip the copper from these wires, they throw these wires back into junkyards in our landfills. And there's mountains of these wires across the country. We could take them and we can repurpose them. So this pilot plant is currently in Arlington, Texas, where there is a significant source of wire and cable residual. We could put a plant up in 120 to 180 days, and we press repeat across the country once WireCycle is up and running. But our bread and butter here is patterned, regionally sourced feedstock collection. We want to be able to tackle the problem at its origin while also being mindful of transportation and freight costs, and most importantly, GHG and overall carbon reduction in all aspects of the process. So I'm happy to talk more about our biomimicry plants, but for another time. Next slide, because we're here to talk about, again, substrate. So sometimes rather than waiting for a market to supply our macro polymers into, we'll just create our own through a finished product. And that's what we've done here with Again Substrate. Again Substrate is made from 100% PCR content, specifically from automotive and electronic scrap, offering a carbon neutral, sustainable alternative to virgin aluminum, which currently dominates the traffic signage industry. The benefits include enhanced safety, durability, cost effectiveness, and a major environmental impact and GHG reduction, all while matching or exceeding aluminum in their performance. Next slide, please. So in the US, there's currently around 40 million traffic signs up in the field. I'd say today on your way home from work or the next time you drive to the supermarket, even the shortest of errands you may run this week, try and count how many traffic signs you see from point A to point B, safely, of course. You'd be amazed on how many you pass by. Aluminum signs currently guarantee 7 to 10 years, yet there's still around 3 million traffic signs replaced annually in the US. Using our substrate instead of aluminum creates a 96% reduction in carbon emissions. So how do we get our signs on our roads right now? It's a pretty tedious process that requires different steps for specific roads across the country. State highways and federal roads require an extensive third-party testing data set, followed by an approval process. And our substrate right now is currently being tested by AASHTO, one of those third parties that federal approval requires. However, local cities and municipalities don't require AASHTO testing nor federal approval, so we can sell into these markets today. We currently have several stop signs made from our substrate up in New Jersey, and we're actually coming up on a year of them being up without any issues or complications. In addition to that, Washington, D.C., New York City, Newark, and Philadelphia all have samples of ours and have begun their own testing and trials themselves. And at the same time, we're also selling to parking services companies to fulfill their signage needs as well. Park Mobile, for instance, has purchased our signs for their parking lots in the Bay Area. And we've even been a tag creative with them as we've created parking boxes out of our substrate that are currently being trialed in their lots in Spokane, Washington. Next slide, please. So as I previously mentioned, our recycled plastic production requires less energy than aluminum, and it significantly reduces carbon emissions. We're repurposing this plastic that would otherwise end up in our landfills while keeping our precious metals in the earth. And as for durability, our substrate is suitable for a myriad of applications in the signage industry, all while matching the weatherability guarantee that aluminum boasts, which is that 7 to 10 years. Our substrate resists corrosion, unlike aluminum, which provides longer lasting durability in those harsher weather conditions. Like I mentioned, our stop signs in New Jersey, we have some that have been up since February of 24 along the ocean, where the city planners in the area actually cannot install aluminum signage for safety purposes due to the high winds. With those high winds, aluminum signs pose a major threat, a safety threat, if they blow over or become projectiles due to how sharp they are. Our signs have been up for a full year in some of the toughest wind conditions without any complications, and we're proud to say that. In addition, our substrate's UV properties ensure long fade resistance in extreme sunlight conditions, guaranteeing long-term visibility and readability over time. And our substrate is compatible right now with 3M and Avery Dennison laminates that are currently used with aluminum traffic signage. We're approved by both laminate companies, and we're excited to be working with them. Next slide, please. So to continue with some safety advantages, our Again substrate can bend up to 90 degrees and return to shape, something aluminum cannot do. This unique flexibility reduces damages and collisions and enhances overall safety. Our substrate is also less prone to denting or warping. And all of this leads to lower maintenance costs. Our substrate absorbs impact better than aluminum. And even when damaged, our substrate has fewer sharp edges, which minimizes injury risks during accidents as well as just simple maintenance. As for economic considerations, right off the jump, our substrate has no scrap value, so which immediately deters the risk of theft and ultimately reducing replacement costs. And outside of that, we have an abundant amount of feedstock to make our signs. As we know, automotive and electronic waste is a major topic in the recycling industry today. For instance, 86% of automotive parts are recyclable right now, with over 12 million vehicles recycled annually in the US. The supply is there, and we're helping to keep a significant waste out of our landfills. We're also in the process of forming strategic relationships with some of the nation's largest automotive and electronics companies, where we will work together with them directly on sourcing feedstock and allowing them to tell this exciting story with us, because it's all about collaboration at the end of the day. This problem is way too big to solve by one company. And we have a great story to tell as well. Old cars bring new infrastructure. There's plenty of auto and electronic scrap to make our signs, and aluminum is such a high valued critical spec, and we've been able to create a plastic alternative from waste at that same spec. And another unique characteristic to our substrate is its non-conductivity. So this opens up even more markets for us to supply into. Think electrical substations, nuclear plants, hydroelectric locations. We're already working closely with Duke Energy, for instance, and have outlined and outfitted one of their substations in Indiana as part of a trial program while they're currently writing our substrate into their spec for all their substations moving forward. Another level of safety opens up another sandbox for us to play in. Next slide, please. So to conclude, this is a huge opportunity to reduce carbon emissions and promote sustainability in an industry that has not changed in multiple generations. So if you're interested in learning more and exploring this further with us and seeing how we can collaborate, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Ben Ospo, the Director of Business Development excuse me, at Again Technologies. Let's bring sustainable safety to our roads. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ben. Heidi, is there any questions that you saw in the chat you wanted to ask now or wait until the end?
I think they're pretty detailed, so I think, Ben, take a look at them and then we can answer them at the end.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you again, Ben. Next, we have Mike McKay with D-Spray Environmental. Mike is a visionary leader and a globally recognized expert in aerosol recycling technology. As the managing director and co-owner at D-Spray Environmental, he has devoted over 25 years to the advancement of aerosol recycling. His leadership and unwavering passion for aerosol recycling has been crucial in developing and promoting D-Spray's innovative recycling technology on a global scale. He was the founder of the world's first 100% aerosol recycling system, founded in Canada in 1998. Mike, thank you so much for being here today to share about D-Spray.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. This is amazing. I kind of stand alone in this waste stream, but I'm going to introduce it to you and maybe give you a little bit of an education on why it's so important and what we're doing about it. So you got the first slide there. Aerosols account for somewhere around 17 billion fills a year, and it's growing at a 3% rate per year. The fallacy that they're not damaging the environment is totally wrong. Just the CFCs are gone now, but now the carbon-based propellants are creating global warming. Next slide, please. I'm going to give you the bad news first. Aerosols are extremely bad for the environment, and I'm going to show you a can here that is claimed to be less than 1% fill rate. And can we play that slide? It's a video. Maybe it doesn't work. Okay. So with these 16 billion cans, I'm just going to put it in perspective. The deep sea horizon oil spill that everybody saw on TV for 8 months and just shocked the world. One of the worst hazardous waste spills on record. And as far as aerosols going, at the empty rate, at the end of life, when all the consumers are done, all the factories are done with them, these fill rates of these cans are not empty. So at about a 10% fill rate on aerosol cans, that's equivalent to the deep sea horizon oil spill, continuous, not for 8 months. The sad part about this is from studies we've done all over the world, these cans are closer between 20 and 30% fill rate. So that's multiples of what the deep sea horizon oil spill. And even worse than that, because these are hazardous waste and they're explosive, they don't get recycled. In the US, it's less than 10%. So that means the can and the plastic don't get recycled either. So the deep sea horizon reference was only on the liquid, the haz waste liquid, and the propellants. Can we skip to the next one, please? So these are the four main recycling methods in the world today. The one that is most common in the US and most first world countries is the top left, which is baling. So baling would be the same as baling your soda cans, your soup cans, etc. And a lot of these aerosols go into this baling process, which does recover the metal. So there's some merit to baling. The downsides from that is both the propellant and the liquids, as we discussed, are going to atmosphere. On top of that, this is extremely dangerous because you're dealing with propellants are the same gas as what you use in your barbecue, for example. So it's very dangerous, but it does recover the metal. The top right is incineration. A lot of aerosols are going into incineration. You get waste energy with incineration. Obviously, you have environmental footprint and you're not recovering the metals. And then the most common one is the bottom left, and that's landfilling. And the reason landfilling is so prominent with aerosols, not just in the US, globally, is two reasons. The main one is safety of aerosol recycling. When these things get to your local MRFs, your collection sites, they don't want to handle them because they are explosive. So even when you think they're putting them in your blue box and they're getting recycled, most of them are going to landfill. Because what are they going to do with them? It's very expensive equipment to get aerosols recycled properly. And with that comes, what is the price per can? There is no stewardship program other than a few small communities where the actual aerosols are getting paid for per can in order to afford the technology. And the bottom right, in my opinion, is almost as bad. It's not as bad as landfilling, but that's shredding. Shredding is extremely dangerous. Every shredder that I've met over 27 years for aerosols is caught on fire or exploded. It just takes a matter of time. Plus, everything's going to the atmosphere. The upside to that is you're getting the metal. Next slide, please. So this is what despray does. First of all, this is very high technology where we take aerosols in bulk. Let's say, just for example, 1,000 cans at a time. We put them in a controlled chamber. This is automated machinery. And in that controlled chamber, we can sense the oxygen level for safety reasons. It's always too high. Then we introduce nitrogen into that chamber, and that's monitored. So when the oxygen level comes down far enough, only then will the machine operate because it's non-explosive. Because we have it in an enclosed environment, we compress on the top right is representing the propellant. We compress that propellant back to liquid fuel. And why that's important is because that can be totally used 100% for waste energy. In a generator, for example, in our own facility, we're running our heaters in our factory, and we have a heat treating plant as well. We're doing with this. On the top left is representing the liquid waste. That can be hairspray, that can be paint, that can be whatever your standard aerosols around the house. That liquid is all mixed together, and it doesn't seem like it's worth anything, but the cement industries would love to have this, or they do have this. Every one of our clients goes to the cement industry, and it's a low-grade fuel that they can get for free. The cement industry can actually be carbon negative based on them burning other fuels. So that's where that goes. And underneath those two things, you can see a solid brick of metal. So the beauty of this is you have the three waste streams. The metal on the bottom is prime feedstock for the smelters. And we are working with the Ball Cans, which is the biggest aluminum can manufacturer in the world. And we're going to do a study on the aluminum, separating the aluminum from the steel, because there's, first of all, major carbon footprint differences, and there's a different way of processing them. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is, again, just a picture of the end results from our technology. This is we run our own aerosol recycling facility in the Netherlands, so we can run all tests, get the carbon footprints, the gas analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So on the left is metal bricks. In the center is that liquid waste I was talking about. And on the right, this is all representation of the fuel. Can we go to the next slide, please? These are the 4 systems that we have on the market right now. This has been 27 years worth of engineering and science and collaboration. The bottom left would be for like a community-based or a small waste management company that wants to get into the aerosol business. That'll do around 500 cans an hour. The top right will do somewhere between, I'm going to go into millions per year because we're talking big numbers. That'll do between 2 and 3 million cans a year. The bottom left is a bigger system, and that will do upwards of 7 million cans a year. And I'm going to go back to that one in a minute. And the bottom right is the biggest system that's made in we have 2 units down in actually cement company down in the States. So it's actually at a cement company. So they're getting benefit of getting paid for the aerosols. They're getting benefit of the free fuel on both levels, and they're selling the metal. Though there's 2 units down there, we just installed those last year. They're going to do 100 million cans a year. So that's the biggest one in the world right now. On the bottom left, I just wanted to go back to that to show you, we do these in a sea container, which is actually a miniature factory. That whole sea container is not a container, it's a factory. It has all kinds of sensors in it for everything from VOCs to lack of oxygen, et cetera. Inside there are separation tanks, vacuum system, a compressed gas system, et cetera, et cetera. The reason why this is so important is because having a safety certified system is not easy to do. We manufacture these, certify them before they even leave our factory as a complete safe unit. We have a bunch of them in the States now, including with US Ecology is one of our main clients. And when we put these on site, they're already back in the Netherlands tested as an operating system. So that makes a big difference. We can install one of these in between 3 and 5 days. And the only reason we can do that is because we build them as a factory. So the other thing that we're doing here is, you can tell I'm pretty passionate about aerosol recycling. I've been kicking the doors in for 27 years. Just this year, I'm launching a new program, a new nonprofit called GARA, and it's the Global Aerosol Recycling Association. It's just launched. I'm looking for some funding from some of the big boys. I just put it on the message there. GARA is going to create programs. We've already got one down in the States. Even though people think the States isn't environmental friendly, they actually are, and they are leaders in some of the stuff, if it can make money, of course, as one of the other speakers said. So GARA is creating programs. We have one program, again, started in the States. This is strictly for paint. The biggest paint recyclers are getting the household paints, but they don't do propellants or spray cans. And we're working with a program now where we're going to recycle aerosol paints 100%, including getting the paint back, retinting it, and putting it back into spray cans. And that's going to be sold into some of the lower markets like India, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the things GARA is doing. And we just was speaking this morning with one of the cities. We're going to do a small community, and we're going to put one of those small units in, and we're going to do a complete study for a green city. Right now, I don't know of any in the world that are doing this. I'm looking for guinea pigs. It's not really guinea pigs. We have 27 years of doing this, but as a case study so that we can expand this further. Aerosols are in the US, they have about 4 billion cans a year in the US. From what I know, there might be maybe 600 million being recycled. That's on the very, that's probably multiplying by 2 or 3. And even out of those, it's most of those are done by shredding and incineration. And I would say maybe around 200 million are being actually recycled 100%. So next slide, please. Every can counts. I stole that name from one of the can associations. Maybe shouldn't have. But it's a great name because every spray can counts. And yeah, so I'm pushing that to why I started the GARA. And we're hoping to, right now, we're only dealing with waste management companies because you have to have hazardous waste handling to be able to do this. We're trying to expand that into communities, as I was discussing, and get some stewardship programs working for these. There's one in my local community that does work, because then the cans are being paid for. And it's kind of ridiculous not to have either from producer responsibility. I've never seen any money go towards any of our clients, and it might be, but not that I know of. So where is that money going? If the money flows, as one of your speakers said, then you can deal with some of these hard to deal with waste streams. So that's all I have for D-Spray right now. There's a lot more to talk about. If you guys, I put up my website. I'm gonna put my email as well. So if you need anything, I can actually do a full presentation for you if you want. And if you want to join some of these programs, I'd be glad to have you.
Thank you, Mike, very much. Heidi, do we have any questions in the chat?
We really don't, but I think the one big thing to note is that Mike is open to doing pilots, and we would like to work on those pilots with you, because if we collect the data correctly and we can help report it in a fact sheet, it's going to help others build on the success. And I can tell you that we helped when I was chair of the Recycling Commission in California. One of our first recommendations was to expand the paint care program to cover all other paints, and we did that first with aerosol cans. So we have the first program in California in the country that is going to have EPR for aerosol cans, at least in the paint category. That's about, I believe, a third of them, Mike. So hopefully some of that program money will start rolling to you, but they're starting to have hearings at Cal Recycle March 3rd, 1 to 3 Pacific time. They're going to have their first hearing on the starting of those regulations. So yeah, hopefully money will start flowing. And thanks for that. And we'll move on to the next and last speaker.
Yeah, so last but not least, we have Emin Israfil, the founder of Rubbish, an AI-driven platform transforming waste management and resource recovery practices. He has 8 years of waste management and 13 years of professional engineering leadership, and started Rubbish in 2017 to clean up the litter on the streets of San Francisco, and has grown the company to apply cutting-edge technology to waste management. Rubbish's AI software optimizes operations, automates repetitive tasks, and ensures compliance for cities, large properties, and waste management professionals. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Mike, I just want to say that presentation was awesome. I hope you give tours of that big facility that processes millions of cans. So, like Jordan mentioned, thank you for the intro. Last time I was here, I was talking about litter and how AI could be applied to to environmental data. Now I'll talk about everything else that we do. And I'll give you a bunch of real-world examples of how we apply AI in the area of waste management. So let me progress. Here's a quick overview of our agenda. First, I'll speak a little bit more about myself, my journey, and I'll go over 4 applications of AI in waste management: in food recovery, waste characterization, handling of donation items, and recycling education. And if you stay to the end, we have an extra bonus surprise for people for SB54 fans. So, like Jordan mentioned, we started in 2017 when this little corgi in the top right corner choked on a chicken bone on the streets where we grew up. We said, this is BS. We should be able to have clean streets. So we started Rubbish with the goal of creating clean, healthy, and sustainable neighborhoods. Since then, we've had the honor of working with a lot of great organizations. We were featured by Apple, Google, got to speak at NASA twice, and now work with orgs like Replate and the city of New Orleans. So it's been a fun journey. And who are we? What do we do? We're considering ourselves an all-in-one stop for a lot of the AI software for logistics and tracking, and especially computer vision applications within waste management. So you could kind of think of us like Shazam for waste and recycling and recovery. So if anyone remembers that app, you could press a button and it'll tell you what song you're listening to. Similarly, with our application, you press a button, you take a photo, and it will characterize what is in that photo. So here's a very crude example of what we do in the food recovery industry with orgs like Replate. Their runners take a photo, and our AI categorizes, the GPS location, the time, what's being picked up, so that they could just be more efficient. Here's a demo from the ReFed conference in Baltimore. Here the AI is differentiating between salami and pepperoni and estimating the weight. Usually the food is that's being picked up is packaged up, but this is more fun to demo. And you can see the AI could tell you the difference between focaccia and crostinis. So that's a fun little thing to demo. So beyond food recovery, what else can we do? So another example of us being live, this time in the city of New Orleans and their convention center, is tracking waste containers, these 30-yard containers. Their staff takes a photo, and it characterizes the fullness of the container, detects contamination, and does a waste characterization from what it could see. So in this photo, you see it's about 50% plastic bottles, 40% aluminum cans. It's about 50% full total. And it even catches the blue plastic bags in the back. So one more example. Here, the fullness is about 40%. And of that composition, of the 40%, 70% is pallets, plastic wrap, and other. So as you can imagine, the New Orleans Convention Center is one of the biggest buildings in America, has over 3 million square feet. So they need a way to detect contamination, log their metrics quickly, and they do that with just one photo. And we help them do that with just one photo. So here's an example of doing it live. And also with our app, you don't need to wait for the loading. You could just take a photo and keep moving, but I wouldn't have anything to demo if that was the case. So here you can see it's a couple of seconds and it'll give you the results right away, and you could approve or not. So that's pretty cool. The other thing that large convention centers and large properties use our stuff for, or our AI for, is there's a ton of stuff that's left over after a convention center. Like an automotive convention center leaves behind tons of things that would otherwise be thrown out. So wouldn't it be great if you could divert this through diversion, through donations? But before you donate all the leftover stuff at a convention, you need to know the condition, the brand, the serial number, the item category, and that's something that we support as well. So whether you're donating it or you're just cataloging it for your own data, Rubbish supports doing that as well. So let me give you one more video with that. Hopefully you could hear the sound.
These are my Beats headphones. Looks good. It notices the visible scuffs and grime. It's a little offensive, but it's true. I'm going to confirm that one. Here's another thing. Let's see, multi-purpose lighter, BIC, category lighter, appears to be in good condition. And all these categories are refinable. We just did our best to kind of guess what you would want.
Cool. So obviously we could take photos and categorize a lot of stuff, and we could do it really quickly so you don't have to spend life in Excel spreadsheets. So what happens when you kind of take all these photos? Well, we make it super easy to aggregate them and export this data into Excel or CSV, even PDFs. This is a terrible slide because it's not a very pretty PDF, but this is an example of an automatically generated PDF on the right. That gives all the photo, the time, the location, and the percent composition, and it automates all that. We could even publish this to a website, and we help clients all the time automate this kind of form filling. A lot of states have different regulations, and our technology is very amenable to taking this data and filling out those forms for your compliance needs on a case-by-case basis. One more for the government people in the room who are tracking, hundreds of trash cans around the city. I think you get the point. You could take a photo, it'll tell you the fullness, contamination, and it will automatically get the GPS location and see if maintenance is needed. So you could do it through an app. We also have QR codes that we stick on the side of these things so citizens can report or just your staff can report. So in summary, what is AI Unlock? Well, the number one takeaway I hope you have from this talk is that significantly faster data collection and characterization. We really strive to automate a lot of these repetitive tasks so we could focus on the higher level items within promoting circularity. It also is easier, more accessible since less training is required, and reduces bias. All thinking things have bias, but with this, it's more explicit and controllable. So I'll give you one more example of projects that we work on with government, and that's up-to-date recycling information wherever you go. I think everyone here is familiar with these kind of guidelines. They're amazing, but there's a lot of barriers to entry to them for a lot of reasons. And if new EPR laws are passing, that means that regulations are changing all the time. So how do you keep people and your population informed? Well, that's what we strive to do. So using the technology that I've just shown you, the ability to take a photo of anything in your home or office or wherever, and get how to dispose of it properly. For example, in this case, the paper goes to recycling. This is a Safeway chicken or wherever you buy your roasted chicken. And if you take a photo, it will tell you that the paper goes in recycling, the chicken in compost. And then the plastic container goes in recycling, big asterisks, but you have to clean it first. And that's according to what Recology and SF wants you to do. Whether or not it's actually recyclable is a separate question. But those are the guidelines that we get here in San Francisco. And we could help communicate that all with a photo, and it's context aware. So if the pizza box is greasy, we could tell you to put that in compost instead of
With the AI button toggled
recycling.
on, simply take a picture to give the assistant a try. The Rubbish app accurately detects the hand sanitizer bottle in this example. It also instructs the user to make sure the bottle is empty and rinsed out before being recycled.
Okay, I won't play the whole thing, but you can view more of that on our website. And the whole point is it's context aware. You don't have to type in your zip code. You don't have to type in what the item is. You just take a photo and it's like, oh, I'm in San Francisco. Milk cartons go in recycling or wherever they go these days. This also works with EPR and like specialty items like mattress and paint cans. You could imagine how that works. And the final thing, the Easter egg in my last minute, is we love what this organization does and all the hard work they put into promoting circularity. And I try and be on a lot of the SB 54 meetings, but sometimes it's hard and sometimes there's 80-page papers. So what we've started to do is create podcasts to summarize these so you could listen to them on your way to work. Feel free, I'll drop the link in the chat, and you could check out those podcasts. So let's collaborate, give us feedback. Thank you for allowing us to be here. And that's my presentation.
Thanks so much, Emin. I learned a lot. And also your webinars would be great to post in our SB 54 working group if you've summarized things for people. I know it's hard for all of us to keep up with what's going on SB 54 and the packaging rule in California. So at this point, we've at the end of our presenters, and it's time for Q&A. So why don't we, before we move into my closing slides, we've got a few minutes. Let's take some questions from the chat. And I know, I don't know, Mike, if you answered the question that was in there, a gentleman, Greg Williams, asked, and you can turn your cameras on, all the speakers, please, so everybody can see you. But Greg asked, what is the best method for collection of the aerosol cans?
That's probably one of the best questions, or the toughest questions. There is really no great collection system. There's different places in Britain, they're trying to do it in the blue box. The problem with the blue box is that they don't want hazardous waste in it. So that's one of the programs I'm going to try to work on. So they don't want to have a second blue box. So they have so many boxes, that a lot of these countries and regions don't want to have a separate blue box. So I'm experimenting with having an insert for the blue box, because when you follow your waste stream for aerosols, you don't throw out 20 at a time. You do your underarm deodorant, your hairspray, whatever. Most of them are going in the garbage in the bathroom. So if you had a separate slot, again, this has never been tried, and you could put them in there, then they can be separated properly. So there really isn't a good collection system, especially for post-consumer. And there's a huge industrial market, automotive, Walmart, end of runs, all full cans. Those are easy to target because they are corporate responsible, so they get rid of them. It's the post-consumer that's a problem. That's one of the things we're going to work with Gara. One of the biggest issues, safety and how to get them separated from the other waste.
Yeah, and the first industry that's going to have to do this is paint. So I definitely want to connect you with Paint Care if you haven't been already, because I think
yeah, I haven't dealt with Paint Care directly, but with that other contact you gave me, I did GDB Paint, but not Paint Care.
Okay.
I did work with the state of Oregon was doing some system, and that kind of went away. I didn't know if they were involved with Paint Care or.
Well,
anyway.
and I just want to say, we've been writing a lot, Jordan and I, about the problems of fires in our entire waste system and the threat that we are going to lose insurance and completely in this industry in the next few years if we don't get them under control. And these aerosols are adding to that fire risk, because when they compress in a truck, they can blow up, or if they're run over in a facility. So these are real problems. And it's, when I was a kid, sunscreen was not in a spray bottle. It is now.
If you can, I'm just going to show you. My video was supposed to show this. That's less than 1% in a can. So any of these waste management companies and recycling centers that saying these don't explode and they don't catch on fire, that's total garbage. There's a lot of waste management facilities and recycling centers that catch on fire, and ironically, none of them are because of aerosols, because they don't want to be seen as that. So that was just proof of how dangerous these things are. And I don't know how they're getting insured, but they should be doing this properly.
Well, and the other thing is, Susan asked about refillability of aerosol cans, and as far as I know, they're not refillable.
No, it's not feasible.
No, the only thing that we know of that was refillable is the 1 pound propane cylinders, because they were hot rolled steel, very, very thick, just like a propane 5 gallon that you put on your barbecue. Yes, exactly.
Our system does these.
Yeah.
And we capture, this is pure propane, so it's beautiful stuff.
Yep.
That's actually easier to do than mixed up aerosols.
Yep.
So we are working with a program here in Ontario that's going to target those specifically from campgrounds, et cetera, but it's not rolled out yet. You can see how many, it's virtually, I'm leading the way on all these things, and that's why I need some support in Gara.
Well, I would say that if anybody is interested in doing a pilot and trying to figure out how in your community to collect and recycle aerosol cans, we should talk. Let's talk with Mike together, because again, it helps you all to have a national group, help you verify, put the media together, and then get the word out about what we learn. And so we can, bring ideas to scale.
I do have case studies too for local communities at the HHW site. So if anybody wants those, I put my thing on there, like full details, can weight, can type, fill rate, et cetera, et cetera. It's really interesting stuff.
Well, and one thing Heather says in the chat is that the door-to-door collection program Redwell could potentially collect aerosol cans. And I will tell you, there's a big debate about that in California, because under-resourced areas and people cannot afford extra payments, and haulers don't want their franchise broken. So we've got a problem, and this is a big, big debate up and down the country. So maybe,
anyways,
but we need to find a better way to do this in the system as a whole. So
there are programs. Britain has one where they're putting them in blue boxes, but they're forcing the consumer to empty those cans. And they were even claiming either press the nozzle or puncture it with a nail. It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, at least that's something, but I don't agree with it. Therefore, I'm not part of their organization. But that's why I want to do these pilot programs, so we can get something that's specific that can be rolled out to communities, states, countries, et cetera. So
And
anybody,
John asked in the chat, bring back aerosol cans to stores that sell them. I will tell you, we do a lot of work with the Retailers Association and we really appreciate them very much. They try to do the right thing when they can. But if you can imagine, if you're selling 60,000 SKUs, different products, and all of a sudden people are coming to tell you, you have to take back what you sell. I don't care if it's one or two things. The immediate fear is that it's going to 60,000 and they cannot be transfer stations.
I agree with that.
We really have to be careful about how we talk about what's convenient to the consumer and what makes sense for the people that are simply a pass-through. And if it is the best way, then that's something they should be negotiating between them and the producer. But I don't think it's fair to mandate them to be a transfer station when they did not plan on that when they set up their business. That was not part of their business model. So anyway, that's just a big discussion with bottle bills and everything else. Let me see if there's another question here. Yeah, there's some comments about Ridwell, and there's a lot of questions I've heard as well about what actually happens to things. And anytime we use anybody to collect and recycle things on our behalf, it's always trust but verify. You must follow where that material is going to ensure it is actually getting truly recycled and safely, and there's no harm done to people or planet in the process. So that's always do your due diligence. Now, are there any other questions? Any other hands? There's a lot of people here. I know a lot of you, but I don't know some of you. I'm trying to connect with a lot of you that I haven't met on LinkedIn right now so we can stay connected, and you can follow the National Stewardship Action Council and the Stewardship Action Foundation on LinkedIn as well. We have dropped our other platforms for truth-telling reasons or lack thereof. So we're just on LinkedIn and YouTube at this point. But I think at this point, if I don't see any more questions, we'll go ahead. I see one new message. Let's see. If we go ahead, let's go ahead and we can close this out and give everybody back a couple of minutes. So I want to highlight, this was a free webinar, and we do this because we're trying to inform everyone out there about what is coming, the new innovations, and we want to thank the innovators. And I heard some questions about, maybe this isn't the perfect solution. And what I see a lot is we don't try things because we're in search of the perfect instead of the good. And sometimes we need to make iterative progress in order to get to the next level. And I can tell you, as a visionary, I watch a lot of other people who can't see my vision until I get closer to it. And then they go, oh, okay. When I first started talking about EPR, I can tell you it was like a hard do not know, it's never going to work, all these things. If I'd believed everything they said, we wouldn't be here right now in California. So, but I had the vision and I kept going. And then once we got closer and we passed a few bills, they started seeing it, and then they could understand it, and then they could get on board with the next step. But if we keep waiting for the perfect, we are not making progress. And at this point, with 8 billion people on Earth, the climate hitting 1.5 degrees sustained for the first year solid, we have to move, and we need to be making progress. So we wanted to bring you these folks without charge so that you can see the efforts being made and support the people that are trying to make a real difference. So I thank all of our speakers for doing this. But what we do at the Stewardship Action Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, and at the National Stewardship Action Council, which is our advocacy arm and a C4, we advocate and educate for circularity and that the US achieve a circular economy. That is not going to happen overnight. It's a vision, and we all have to work towards getting there. But if we do study trips, we do partnerships, we do pilots, we do contract work, we can do all the things. So if anybody's interested in talking with us further, please let us know. Next slide, please. And we are hiring, as Jordan said at the beginning, as hard as it is for us to lose her after 10 years, and for me personally to lose her after working with her so well for 10 years, we are hiring for a deputy director, somebody that would be interested someday in being the director of either or both of these organizations down the road. So if you know of anybody who's interested, please have them email me. it could be anywhere in the United States, and we're looking for, great talent that wants to lean in and do this good work. So please send me an email if you're interested or know of anybody that's interested. Just connect them to my email, heidi@nsaction.us. Next slide, please. And if you want to join us, that is how we do this work. So for everybody who's already a member, I want to thank you. If you're not, individual membership for a year for either organization is $175. Membership for organizations goes from 1,000 up to 25,000 a year with different benefits. And we can also customize benefits based on the needs of your organization. So we look forward to working with all of you. And if, again, please join us, because then you get our newsletters. They go out every other week. We electronically, we have these webinars. Some are free, some are only for members free, and then we'd have to charge for others that are not members. But we do study trips and a whole bunch of stuff. And if you're not on our mailing list, you wouldn't be getting that information. So, and then of course you can follow us on LinkedIn. We put a lot there. Next slide, please. And we're very excited about a series of webinars we wanted to share with you. We've partnered with the Solid Waste Association of North America. I am on their advisory board and also their Sustainable Materials Management Committee. And we pushed really hard. Jordan's on the National Association of Hazardous Materials Management Association board. And we pushed really hard to really start talking about household hazardous waste, the dangers and the fires that we're seeing in our system from top to bottom, literally from the collection truck all the way to the landfill. I don't know if you know this, but we just closed one of the largest landfills in California in Los Angeles the week before the fires because it's on fire deep in the landfill and they cannot put it out. And it's literally emitting fumes that are driving people out of their homes around the landfill for the last 8 months. That's dangerous. And it was a reaction fire. They don't know what caused it, but it's way down deep and they can't put it out. So that lost a third of the capacity of LA right when they need it for debris. And then we have trucks that are blowing up on fire. We have MRFs that are burning to the ground and taking 8 months to rebuild. And then insurance companies that won't reinsure unless there's others to share the risk. So then you get one insurer that ends up with 7, like the South Bay Waste Management Authority MRF. So we're in a serious time and we need to take it seriously. SWAN is going to come out with a public statement. I was told today that I've been working on with them about fires and the need for producers to help us with end-of-life management sooner rather than later. We do not have 5 years to wait to get a bill passed and implemented in every state in this country for the hazardous waste and the aerosols especially, and batteries. So you'll look for that, but this webinar series is going to be really good and I hope you can join us on that. That's the next great frontier. Next slide, please. And we also have working groups. So one of the benefits of joining us is we have one on the National Recycling Refund, aka bottle bill, but recycling refund pulls a lot better, and household hazardous waste, as well as illegal single-use inkjet cartridges. I don't know if you know, but when you buy inkjet cartridges, look carefully. Many are coming literally 40% from China. Many are made with Uyghur labor, slave labor, and they cannot be refilled, but they're sold as new and OEM brands, and they're not. They're undercutting our good companies in the US, and then they can't be refilled. So please, if you're interested in that, join us on that issue. City of LA is actually working on an ordinance on that. We'll share that soon. We have an SB 54 implementation group for California. And then we also have a boating equipment working group, and that's for the boat wrap EPR that passed in Minnesota and the marine flare EPR, which we've reintroduced today in California. And we did also introduce, Senator Allen reintroduced our household hazardous waste sponsored bill for EPR in California today too. So a lot of benefits there. Next slide, please. And it's great to work together. I always say teamwork makes the dream work. I know one of our speakers said this too. It takes all of us. I think, Ben, it was you, that it's not one company that can solve the problem, but together we'll solve it. So, and I've always said, when you've got you can't have circularity until everybody in the system passing these materials on are talking to each other. That's how we get good communication to make the system work. So with that, I just want to thank you all that our vision is that 20 years from now, our hope is that nothing goes onto the market that doesn't have an end-of-life plan. And that is my vision, and that is my hope that we get there. in the next 5 years. Actually, I'd rather see it in the next 5 years at this point. So thanks again, everybody, for being here. We really appreciate you. We are super happy for Jordan that she has got such a wonderful position to go to. She's not going far. We're going to see her at the counties all the time. And thank her for 10 years of her amazing work, fresh out of college. Look at what she's done already in her early career. So thanks to Jordan, thanks to Victoria. And I also will say, Anna, if you're here, I think Anna was here. She's our new graduate level intern, and she'll be working with us hopefully until she graduates, and maybe after, hopefully, as full time. But she's with us 24 hours a week. And Anna is going to be a great addition to our team. She just joined us a couple weeks ago. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Hope you found this interesting and helpful. And
Heidi, thank you as well. The work you're doing is amazing.
thank
Can't say
you.
enough about it.
Appreciate you all very much. You're my people. So thanks so much for being here, and we'll look forward to partnerships and making big changes in the world for the better. See you in the fall. We'll do this again in the fall.